guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Terror Neighbors Make Our Lives Hell, Return the Favor by Getting Them Raided. As we found out that we'd be expecting, not one but two kids, we knew we had to move to a real house with more space. At the time we were still living in a one-bedroom studio one up from the ground floor. With its only entrance being a metal fire escape, stairs. Not ideal for a pregnant woman, let alone to live with two small babies. So, we found a privately leased house that was newly renovated and had all the room and a large garden we were looking for. Signed the lease and immediately collected the keys. As the owner drove off, the woman next door comes up to me, immediately demanding we not make noise before noon as her BF works nights and sleeps in and a whole bunch of other do's and don'ts. So right off the bat knew, trouble incoming. As the house was fully renovated and not much had to be done, we were like, don't poke the bear. We'll do the things that make noise after noon. We moved in after 2 weeks and the whole street was warm and welcoming. My wife was almost due giving birth to my twin daughters and some offer help with anything we needed, real kind people. They also told us about our neighbors. Nobody liked them, he was a big bully and got into arguments with everybody. Also were known as radio pirates, as in illegal broadcasting on radio with all Dutch bangers. This music is just terror on your ears and possibly used on terrorists on black sites, which went alongside them partying Thursday to Sunday till 5 in the morning. Loud music, constant yelling, always drunken etc. Really something to look forward to when moving in, certainly with 2 babies on the way. The partying began immediately, full blast. Real classy for someone demanding to be quiet when douchebag needs his beauty sleep. Then one day my Phil came to put new grass in. He has his trailer parked at the back of our houses, which is public space. Not according to him though. Not that exact spot where the trailer, full of grass sods, quite heavy stuff, was parked was his spot and we had to move the trailer. Not going to happen as I was not planning to walk all the way around the house with the sods. He gets angry right away and demanded me to move it. I told him to go duck himself. I was done with him already then and there. I'm also a ginger, so besides having no soul I do have a temper which is always in check until you provoke me repeatedly. Anyone who knows me will tell you that you really had to make an effort for that to happen. We went on working and end of day comes when my Phil wants to leave. Hooks up the trailer and bam, there was douchebag, telling him off, yelling it's his spot and he better does not do this again or else. Mess with me all you want, I can handle it, but what you don't do is threaten my family. I ran outside and told him in no uncertain terms to back off or he'll be the sorry one. Total bluff on my side. Yes, I have that temper, but I'm not impressively built and have no hidden fighting skills, I do fight dirty. He backs off, Phil leaves and I go inside where I find my wife crying. She got scared of him maybe doing something to her father and or me, and this is something we don't need right now. Combined with hormones from being pregnant, and you can paint that picture. So, I'm even more pissed but had to promise not to act on anything. I won't, dear, not yet anyway. Time went on without any real incident and then came the time my wife goes into labor. Didn't go smooth and ended up having to deliver with C-section, or whatever it's called. Because daughter 2 was almost strangled by the umbilical cord. We had to stay 3 nights, excruciating nights due to a lot of things. Finally, we get to go home. Family had put a giant sign in our front yard welcoming the babies. The sign was already up for a few days prior to coming home, so our friendly neighbors definitely knew about it. But did they give a flying duck? No, they did not. From the first night on they started to party and broad blasted their terror music. They started at noon and continued to until 5 or 6 in the morning. Classy. They also kept going for days, so it wasn't just Thursday to Sunday, it was all week long and the next. So we were broken, hardly slept. One of our daughters suffered from heavy cramps combined with all the noise and her parents at the end of their wits, so she cried a lot. And then I just had it. I researched some things on radio pirates, the laws and regulations, and on his large, 5 MTR plus antenna in his backyard, which was illegal in itself. But he used it to illegally broadcast on radio, which meant he had a lot of equipment to do so, which was even more illegal and can even get you jailed, but at the very least they could seize it all and fine him big time. In the 10 to 45K area. Now, I did not immediately turn him in but instead were looking for another house to lease first. This because I figured it wouldn't sit well with him and having a wife and 2 babies in the house alone during the day because I had to go to work. I hear you guys thinking, why not involve the police? Well, they are utterly useless in cases like this. We called once and what they did disturbs me to this day. They rang at their doorbell and immediately started off by saying we called them about noise complaints. Yes, you read that right. No protection or whatsoever, just blatantly told them we were the reason they're there, told them to keep it down and that was it. They didn't even follow up with us or anything. As you can guess, douchebag now was even more pissed and told me the next day, or yelled over the fence that separates our backyards that I really should not do that again, a threat yet again of which I told the police. I didn't report it the first time as I chalked that up to alpha male and heat of the moment. But without witnesses to corroborate, nothing could be done yet again. Some days later I walked out the front door and he just stepped out of his car. Came up to me demanding I cut back some of our ivy that grew on our side of the fence because it tangled in with his big-ass antenna. He would be gone for some hours, and I could come into his garden to cut back the ivy that grew through on their side. And then a light bulb went on above my head. I told him politely that I would do that immediately. Why? Because that gave me the opportunity to find out the make and model of this antenna to ascertain its signal strength, where the cables go exactly and what kind of cables they were. Again, to know the signal strength it handled. Also, it gave me a good view on the equipment he had, through the window so I could snap some photographs of it. This was the icing on the cake. Because in the meantime we did manage to find a new home and already had signed the lease so we would be gone in 2 weeks. Luckily, we only had to paint some walls for the girls' room and furthermore just pack up our things and move them to the other house. So, after I trimmed the ivy and collected my evidence, I went online that night to find out the proper channels to report a broadcast pirate and which entity was tasked with catching said pirate. Turned out I had to call the telecom agency but also the police. Wasn't too happy with the latter, but I remembered I have a nephew that works for the police. Officially his area was immigration but knew enough colleagues that could help us, and we could trust not to confront them again saying I was the one that sent them. That was extremely important for our safety when doing what I was doing. So, I gave both the agency and the police all evidence I collected, pointed them to the frequencies he pirated so they could listen in. Then they started a neighborhood investigation, which wasn't really necessary, but this was to cover our asses to make it look like he got caught, by accident, because they had an active investigation in our area. You never know what he can learn from legal documents and such. We asked them to wait with the raid. Yes, they raid pirates' houses, preferably in the early hours of the day because of his beauty sleep rendering him incapable of fleeing or hide evidence etc. We moved 2 weeks later, and they raided him 2 days after we moved. All of his equipment, computers, radios, cell phones and his car were seized. He left in cuffs, his wife, GF did too, for making a big scene and tried to interfere. All of which was live reported to me by one of my ex-neighbors who were equally ecstatic about this. It turned out, this wasn't the first time he got caught but his third time. His car had no insurance on it and his mo failed. This would normally have no big consequence because he didn't drive it while raided, but they had the guy surveilled on for a week and that definitely meant he was seen driving it while not having insurance and valid mo. He was fined somewhere around 30k euros, went to jail for 12 weeks and everything seized was destroyed except the car. His girlfriend had to do 40-some hours community service. They had to sell the house, which made for very happy neighbors as they too were over and done with them. Like I said, I do fight, but very dirty. You have to really make an effort for me to get to that point. They did and suffered. Over a year later when shopping groceries I encountered them. With the foulest of looks, if looks could kill I'd be a smoldering heap of ash. But nothing more than that. The next story is titled, Grandpa Didn't Tell Us About Grandma's Funeral. I'm seething and so is my mom, he didn't even call us. Some background I guess. When COVID first hit and my grandma ended up isolated with my grandpa at home, since my aunt moved out to a different state and my mom and I didn't live close, she completely lost it and went nuts, to the point that she went from a chubby woman to someone at risk of having anorexia and also being deathly afraid of going to the bathroom for some reason. For the past few years, my mom and aunt have been doing what they can to get her better and no one else has pitched in once mind you. My mom, because she lives 2 hours away from my grandma's house, ended up taking the bigger portion of the responsibility and all of this time she has been working her ass off trying to get her better. Forcing her to take her meds, keeping her seated until she finishes her plate, talking to her to keep her mind sharp, etc. She even brought her to our house to stay a few weeks every few months so we could actually see her frequently enough. Grandpa was always useless when it came to caring for her. For you to have an idea, my grandpa never did any of this at all, and it's no wonder Grandma went crazy with him. They're from a conservative family where the wife always takes care of everything, and the husband brings in money, and he used to work the night shift as a security guard ever since I was a child. That means he spends most of his days sleeping away, and when he's awake, he's utterly useless around the house. Doesn't do dishes, doesn't cook, doesn't clean shit. Just watches TV like brainless idiot or abuses the kittens he brings from the street to hunt mice in his property. It's always been like this. I used to live with them when I was 7 to 8 years old, and he did the exact same thing. I was a kid back then, so I never noticed how much of an ass he was, but I can see now that he didn't even care that much about his children or grandchildren either, to the point we'd at most eat peanuts together on the sidewalk in silence and nothing else. And he also never visited my cousins who literally lived on the same street a few houses down. But I digress. Thing is, Grandma had been getting worse, and 2 days ago she passed away due to health complications. I was broken, and so was Mom, because Mom had been planning on bringing her home again with us when her issues flared up and she had to get taken to the hospital. Can you guess who refused to take her there even though she was also having trouble breathing the day before? In any case, her death was very sudden, and we were really lost. We were expecting a day or two to think by ourselves. We thought Grandpa still had to organize himself and get off his ass for once in his life. That is until my mom got a phone call from an aunt from Grandpa's side of the family, grilling us for not showing up to the funeral a day after Grandma's death. Can you guess what happened? Grandpa organized the whole funeral by himself in a day, paying out of pocket from his lottery funds. He won a small sum a month ago, and he called everyone from his side of the family but not from Grandma's. Literally no one, not a single person that she knew and loved. That piece of shit knew that my aunt, his daughter, was still stuck on an 11-hour drive all the way home to attend the funeral, and he still held it anyway. He didn't call us to say where it was or when, didn't warn us at all, and we wouldn't have even known if that aunt hadn't called to chew us out 10 minutes before Grandma was to be buried. Suffice to say, my aunt got here yesterday late at night, and she and Mom visited the closed grave since they couldn't attend the actual funeral. Grandpa's side of the family has been badmouthing us like we're at fault, when they hadn't even called Grandma once while she was down in the gutter mentally, not even to say a hello in 3 years. I hope karma gets to them, and I hope Grandpa is happy with being alone forever. He's not gonna see any of his grandkids again, not even my 3-month-old baby sis, and his house is gonna stay empty. Have fun doing all of the housework you pushed on Grandma her whole life. Maybe ask your dear family to come around and help. We're cutting them all off effective immediately, and now I'm just angry, man. I wasn't gonna go because I didn't want to replace the image of my alive grandma with one of her on a coffin, but watching my mom cry while having to mourn through badly taken pictures of her in a casket really shook me. The last story is titled, Other People's Children. This happened yesterday but has carried over into today. My son is learning to drive, so sometimes I'll finish up at work early and pick him up so he can drive home. Yesterday the parking lot was fuller than usual, and this minivan kept driving around looking for a spot. They finally decided to squeeze in between me and the curb, adding up barely 2 inches from my passenger side mirror. Their child comes out, and this guy starts gesturing at me because obviously there is no way anyone is getting in either of our cars from the passenger sides. He rolls the window down and motions for me to do the same. The moment I do, he begins to berate me loudly and very aggressively, saying I should move from my spot so his kid can get in his car. Keep in mind I'm in a parking spot. In a small car. He is in this big minivan squeezed into this non-space. I just rolled my window back up and ignored him. Then I feel a thump and look in my rear view mirror to see him walking back to his car. It legit felt like someone ran into me lightly. I didn't dare get out as I'm already a bit intimidated, and dude is obviously a bully after screaming at me to move for the past 5 minutes through a closed window. The guy pulls ahead, his kid gets in, and they leave. I get out of my car and go around to the back and see a massive crack in the bumper of my brand new car, right in the center of what looks like a boot print. This is my first new car ever. Barely a month into my 2-year lease. And this happens. Get a quote. Nearly $4,000 to fix the bumper as it needs to be replaced. It was kicked so hard it actually broke some clips that held it on too, and this was the recommendation of the dealership as it was very loose. Unfortunately, as a leased car this has to be fixed ASAP according to my contract. Go back to the school in the hopes I can get some identifying info on the guy to file a report and recoup costs through their insurance. We can clearly see the front of the van but not the back where the license plate is because of where he is parked, ironically blocked from view by my car. Fast forward to today. I get to work, and my boss calls me into her office. There was a complaint made yesterday about how rude I was, and that I was most like driving under the influence. My boss is awesome. She knows full well there's no way I would do any of that, so she just gives me a heads up and that's it. It's almost 10 a.m. and I just answered a call. It was him. Asking if disciplinary action has been taken yet. I interconnected my line to my boss's, so I had a witness and the convo was interesting. He had no idea it was me, and I was asking for details from the encounter. He gives them, not realizing I filed a police report the day before that wasn't likely to go anywhere as I had no license plate number or name. So, I just got emailed to me, the guy's name, address, make, model, year of vehicle, license plate number. I just got off the phone with the police. I don't think he'll be happy to see them on his doorstep. Maybe he should have just been happy with vandalism instead of also trying to get me fired. Entitled people suck. Thank you for listening.